So, our friend Elijah appears to be having a very, very bad day. He is in the wilderness. He is hiding from Ahab, from Jezebel, from his job, from the world. And when you hear the backstory, you will know that it is pretty hard to blame him. Elijah, for those of you who haven't met him before, is a prophet under the rule of King Ahab of Judah. And in those days, when the kings ruled over Israel, the prophets had a very specific job, which was to attune the king and the people to the voice of Yahweh, to that which Yahweh God speaks and desires, to orient them towards God. And this required the prophets to do very difficult work, to speak truth to power, to be the voice of God to the king, so that the king could rule faithfully, because the king then, as now in England and in Canada, the king is actually considered to be God's servant on earth. And the prophets actually were the ones who anointed the kings, then as now. The archbishop anointed King Charles. And the prophetic load was very, very heavy. And King Ahab, as kings go, was kind of a pain in the butt. Most people blame his wife for this, Jezebel, and I think that we've read enough Bible now to know that it's pretty much always the woman's fault, right? And it is true that Queen Jezebel was a true piece of work. She poses a very big problem for Elijah, because Jezebel, rather than being a faithful Yahweh worshiper, worships the fertility god named Baal, which is a god of idols, a god of blasphemy. And this is a problem for Elijah, and it's a problem for Ahab, because Ahab desperately wants to keep his beautiful wife, and he wants to please her. And so he's busy building altars and carving idols for her to worship, and generally creating all kinds of mess and sin all over the place. And so it's not only turning Ahab away from the God that he's supposed to be orienting the people towards, but it's also starting to disrupt the faithful life of the people of Judah. It is a mess. And Elijah is kind of responsible. So it's his job to try and convince Ahab of Yahweh's power. So there's this drought. Imagine a drought today, and Elijah predicts this drought, and that's supposed to be a sign that, you know, he knows what God is saying, but it doesn't work. And so there is this epic showdown on Mount Carmel, and this is an amazing story, so I commend 1 Kings chapter 18 for your reading, but basically the Reader's Digest version is this. There's this showdown, there's 450 priests of Baal and Ahab and Jezebel on face-off with 100 prophets of the Lord and Elijah. And the goal is a contest to make fire. And so it starts with, you know, the 450 priests are dancing around and they're yelling and they're doing all these elaborate things to try and make fire. And of course, nothing happens. And then Elijah, who is a total smartass, he gets this pile of wood, and then he brings a bunch of water and actually soaks the wood and makes it like as wet as possible, and then stands there kind of silently and says, okay, fire. And like whoosh, this eruption of flame, and almost everyone is consumed, or like almost threatens to consume everybody. And of course, this makes Ahab and the priests really mad, and there's a sword fight. And it turns out that Elijah actually slays all 450 priests with the sword, and a lot of the prophets are killed. And Jezebel is quite unhappy by this, naturally, and so she threatens to kill Elijah, and that's where we entered the story today, that I will kill you. So Elijah takes off into the wilderness, and he is running for his life. That's the backstory to the moment where we meet him hiding out in the desert at Beersheba. And the author of Kings could not have painted a more pathetic picture. He is sitting under a solitary broom tree. It is the only bit of shade or shelter for miles. and he is wishing for it all to just go away. This job he has been given, it's impossible. He can't do it. It is too much. There is too much weight on his shoulders. There are too many idol-worshiping priests to slay. There are too many wicked queens to dodge, too steep a hill to climb in order to do this task of serving Yahweh faithfully. And he can't keep up the pace. He'll never make it. And so he says to God, "It is enough, my God. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors." In other words, kill me now. Stick a fork in me, God. I'm done. Oh, Elijah, I feel you, brother, because we have all had these days, haven't we? Maybe not so much the escaping the wrath of a murderous queen, but all of us have known that crushing feeling of too much weight, of wanting to run far, far away, maybe to the woods, maybe to another planet. My personal fantasy is this convent, a specific convent. It's in St. Albert, Alberta. I went there once. The cells have a single bed and a sink and like a window that overlooks like this amazing valley, and there's green everywhere, and your cell phone doesn't work, and like no one talks at all. And it's just this, there's this like spiral staircase literally, and I just think about it every time I want to run, and this place of peace. Sometimes, like Elijah, it's our jobs that stress us out. Sometimes it's our kids, our partners, our parents, our families. The albatross of current events, the weight of simply reading the newspaper right now. Grief, loss, the unrelenting grip of mental illness or physical illness, a sudden diagnosis, a major life change, or simply the rugged terrain of daily existence. We know chaos. We know anxiety and worry. We recognize Elijah's elevated heart rate as he sits under that tree, his racing thoughts, the distorted cognitive loops that circle around and around as he considers his job and how he is to do it. We have been jolted awake at 4 a.m., scared. We know what it feels like to sit under that broom tree. And the stuff of chaos looks different to all of us, but we've all known what it feels like to want to run from it. For me, right now, these days, chaos doesn't look like a priest slaying sword. It looks like an emery board, one of those cheap cardboard nail files. Right now, I'm living with my mom these last couple of weeks. My dad is in hospital after a bad fall. He is gonna be fine. He's gonna be okay. He's making a good recovery, slow and steady, but my mom has Alzheimer's, and she needs someone to look after her all the time. And if you have ever dealt with the care of an elder or a partner or a friend with dementia, you certainly do not need me to explain to you how chaotic and turbulent my life is right now. My mom, she likes to file her nails. She can't abide a hangnail or a jagged edge of any kind, but memory loss renders her unable to keep track of them. So they are everywhere I look. On the side tables, beside her chairs, beside her bed, 3 deep in her purse. I actually looked on Costco for a jumbo pack the other day. Nail files have become a symbol of the turbulence and the chaos that broke out in my family's life when that phone rang. We've all had those phone calls. 1 minute everything is normal, the next minute everything is not. Something these days is like a nail file times 1,000. Something's always out of place or mixed up. My mom needs my help with almost everything. It is an exercise in endless patience, requiring almost bottomless compassion, and often yields feelings of guilty frustration. And when you are the primary caregiver of someone who has dementia, you just never know what life is going to throw at you from one minute to the next. And no matter how much we love our people, and I love my mother more than anyone I think on earth, there are moments when the weight of it just seems too heavy. And I miss my family, and I miss my job, and I miss Yellowknife, and I miss my ordinary life, and I miss all of the time I had to waste that was mine to squander just a few short days ago. And there are times when I wonder just how it is that I'm supposed to cope with this. Or if there is a tree somewhere that I could just hide under. Back under the Beersheba broom tree of despair, God answers Elijah's prayers by doing three things. The first thing that happens is that an angel appears. After Elijah drifts off into a fitful sleep, the angel taps our buddy on the shoulder and offers to him a jar of water and a cake that has been baked on hot stones. And Elijah eats and drinks and falls asleep again. And another tap on the shoulder comes, and the angel offers food, and this time says, "Take this food and eat it, because otherwise the journey is going to be too much for you." And the next time Elijah wakes, he gets up and he starts to walk. And this is the second thing that God does. God sends Elijah on a walk through the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights, which leads him to Mount Horeb, which is the same mountain that was made famous by Moses, to a sacred place. These might seem strange cures to utter despair: a little snack, an angel food cake, and a 40-day walk in the wilderness. But think of those times in your life when chaos has erupted. How many of us have been recipients of food from friends or neighbors? And how nourishing has that food been when you most needed it? And how many of us have known what restorative powers come from going for a walk in the woods, when our heads are spinning and we go back to nature and we find a little bit of clearing and a little bit of peace? These first two gifts of God give Elijah the strength to move forward to the third thing. And the third thing that happens is that Elijah has a conversation with God. And again, he starts out by proclaiming the depths of his hopelessness. "Kill me, God, take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. I've tried so hard to serve you, but I can't." And this time, there isn't an angel. This time, there is an instruction from God to stand on the mountain and listen and wait, for God is about to pass by. And the prophet figures that he could really use a direct encounter with God right now. He needs some energy, so he waits with eager anticipation. And there is this series of turbulent, chaotic events, so dramatic that Elijah is certain that this must be the divine. First, a great wind, so strong that it splits rocks and mountains into pieces, and that must be God. But God is not in the wind. And then an earthquake that shakes Elijah off his feet, but God is not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but God is not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of sheer silence. A still, small voice. Quiet, peace, calm. And Elijah looks up, and he feels it, and he knows. And into the silence, a small voice speaks. "What do you need, Elijah?" And for the final time, Elijah confesses his desperation, and for the final time, Yahweh gives instructions. "Go back, Elijah. Go back. Anoint a new king. Get rid of Ahab. Someone else can do this. Enlist a new prophet. Get some help. There is a servant, his name is Elisha, and he will help you. And there are 7,000 of my followers still in Judah, and I will keep them safe for you, and you can start again. It's going to be okay, Elijah. You know how to do this, Elijah. You are strong, Elijah. Into the struggle, into the mess, speaks a still, small voice. And God sees Elijah's pain and speaks words of reassurance and sends angels and sends helpers, and God is in the calm. When my dad first went into hospital, I noticed that 3 things happened. And the first thing is that a congregation of angels brought me frozen meat pies and salads and banana muffins. Not angel food cakes, but food of angels. My kitchen was full, and so was my heart. And my parents' friends and my friends have appeared these last 2 weeks with visits and food and rest and reassuring words and wisdom. And like magic, this community has risen up around us, and God has done that. And that food gave me strength for the next step. Like Elijah, the second thing, which is that my mom and I have been going for a lot of walks. Not through the wilderness, just around the street, to the park, to my house, to get something I've forgotten. And those walks are really, really slow. And it's like my life has literally slowed down to the pace of a snail, in contrast to the whirling dervish of mayhem and nail files that I am surrounded by a daily basis, these endless phone calls to caregiving agencies and the parking garage roulette at the hospital and the Tetris-style scheduling and squeezing my work into 40-minute increments because that's how long an episode of Murdoch Mysteries lasts. I have rarely been this exhausted, as any of you who have cared for your parents can attest, but the walks slow me down. And they force me to move at my mother's speed rather than the speed of my anxiety. And I find that on those walks, I see things differently. When it's just us two, with no distractions of my laptop or the chores, I listen more attentively, which allows me to hear the third thing, which is the sound of my mother's voice. My mother's still, small voice. And she is singing. Now listen, my mother would be the first person to tell you that she cannot sing. She can't sing. She has never been able to sing, like, at all. She can't carry a tune in a bucket. She has wonderful rhythm, but no pitch at all. And she was always pretty self-conscious about this. But Alzheimer's has freed her somehow, magically. And now she sings. And she has the softest voice you've ever heard, but an amazing memory for song lyrics. And so every time we get in the car or we have a few minutes to fill, we put on our 50s and 60s playlist or our church hymns, and we sing together. And it's amazing to sing with her and to listen to her still, small voice. The other day, we were sitting in traffic and it was hot and it had been a really, really hard day and I had forgotten something and I was spinning and thinking. And then I heard her. Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. The still, small voice of my mother, Marilyn. In the midst of mayhem, I think it's tempting to try and move faster and faster and faster, to keep up, to try and outrun the storm, or to give up altogether. Elijah in the desert, listening to the voice of God, reminds us what it means to slow down and notice what God is doing in the background. When the chaos and the clutter of our lives threatens to overwhelm us, to consume us, God hears our prayers and answers in love, not by removing the painful things, because that's not how God works. We know that by now, that God cannot get rid of our terrible bosses or cure Alzheimer's or eradicate cancer or stop the hurricane. God sends angels with casseroles and gets us up for a walk and speaks into the silence. In the nail files of our despair, God begs us not to give up, for the divine walks beside us and feeds us and speaks to us now and always. And so, my friends, whatever you face this day, whatever wilderness you find yourself in, whatever storm you are enduring, this grace is for you. The healing balm of God's still small voice is yours. So take a bite of angel food, walk, listen, and know that God is. Amen.